Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Who next for Daniel Dubois, who conquered Anthony Joshua at Wembley Stadium in front of close to 100,000 people? Of course, we do know, and we found out after that fight, that there was a rematch clause in place. But it's no guarantee to be exercised, although Eddie Hearn seemed pretty confident that it would. But with the Saudis' involvement, and given what we saw there, their one-sided performance, maybe it won't be. As we've seen with the Saudis, with Deontay Wilder, didn't exercise his rematch clause with Joseph Parker, and so too Zhang Jilei didn't with Joseph Parker after his loss to Parker. So the Saudis could have a big influence here, and if it's not Joshua, it's worth talking about who it's going to be, because logically it can probably only be one of about 4 or 5 names. And what we'll do first is we'll just pull up the IBF rankings. So you can see here, Anthony Joshua was rated at number 3, and he's just been taken down by Daniel Dubois. These rankings have not been updated since that fight, but they will be in due course. And maybe one of the names that I'm going to mention could end up finding his way onto this list. But at number 4, you've got Agi Cabello. Is that a possibility? Because there had been talk about Parker and Cabello, but nothing is confirmed. In fact, there is nothing confirmed for all of the guys that I'm about to mention, even though they have been linked to each other. So as you can see here, Agi Cabello at Wembley, he was at the fight, and he did actually say with his Instagram story where who's next for Daniel Dubois, he told people to blast the comments. So that seemingly indicates his interest for that fight. But I had wondered, with Cabello being there, was it a case of being seen and heard and trying to put himself in the mix for different fights? Or if Joshua had have won, would they have announced a fight for Cabello, either with the Joshua, either with the Parker? But Parker was there as well, and nothing was announced. So it was quite interesting. But Cabello, obviously, having taken down Arslan Bekmambetov and also Frank Sanchez, his stock has been on the rise. And that's a good fight, different style matchup, fresh fight. That would be something I would be willing to see. A guy who was just below him in the rankings, Martin Bakole. Ahead of the fight, you had Martin Bakole saying good luck to Anthony Joshua. He'll be watching direct from Congo. And the day before, he'd said, let's do it, Anthony Joshua, in Congo. Will be a good option. I'm speaking with my president already about to make it happen. Maybe with the result that fight could potentially be off the table for a bit, or perhaps they could go ahead with it even, despite the loss. But you do have his trainer, Billy Nelson, having reposted a comment saying Dubois versus Bakole is the fight to make. And Martin Bakole, huge win against Jared Anderson on a Riyadh season card. And we know that Martin Bakole, his stock is high right now. I mean, it could make a lot of sense. That's a tough fight for both guys. Martin Bakole, the slightly taller and longer man, both big punches, and they'd be taking lumps out of each other. So it's an interesting matchup. And Bakole had actually been linked to Zhang Jilei. Zhang and Bakole was a fight that the Saudis said they wanted to make. Hasn't been confirmed. That was some weeks ago, where they basically said they wanted that fight. Hasn't been announced for the end of this year or a potential further out fight card. But Zhang, he's another guy who has said, look, I want this fight. Saying on social media, good job, my brother. Enjoy your day, champ. And a little bit of a clip here, which I'll play.
Congrats, Daniel. Good win. I'm happy for you. But
So Zhang and Bakole and Cabello, all good fights. Zhang versus Daniel Dubois, that's a 3 or 4 round shootout at best. Zhang Jilei, at 40 plus years old now, he's shown in recent fights he's a big banger, but he's got no gas tank, and he's just going to have to land something. And being a southpaw, something a bit different, maybe something a little uncomfortable for Daniel Dubois. If he lands with the power that he's got, it could be all over. But I like that fight. I like a Bakole fight for Daniel Dubois. I like the Cabello fight. All of these fights are good fights, and with Daniel Dubois being the IBF champion, this is number 4, 5, and 6. These are the makeable fights, I think, the most makeable. And another name that has been thrown into the mix by fans is Joseph Parker. And as you can see here, Parker saying a few days before the fight, I want the AJ vs. Dubois winner. He wants the winner of that fight. Joseph Parker coming off the couple of biggest wins of his career. He wants to be active. He's not active, and he's been calling for a big fight. Wants this one here, wants the winner. That's not a bad fight, but as you know, he's not in the rankings here, but this is because Parker is the WBO interim champion. But it's not really a unification, so I don't know if I can really see it happening. I don't think the IBF would class it a unification of sorts with an interim title. So is there a bit of a snag there? I don't know. Maybe the Saudis can grease the wheels and make the IBF come to its senses and make some sort of decision that could make it happen. But I like that fight as well. And Parker, like Dubois, he wants to stay active. And I've seen some people saying that Daniel Dubois should actually have a break. That he should, these 4 fights that he's had in the past year, Joshua, Miller, you've got Hrgovic, and also that fight with Usyk, maybe it's just over a year. That's 4 big fights, tough fights, and he's come through 3 of them, and he's really built confidence. And this is sort of bookended with this massive knockout of Anthony Joshua. But I think for Dubois, activity is his friend. Keep him active. If this is working, and he's going to be able to, continue doing this, and he's still 27 years old, so it's not like he's an aging fighter that needs these massive gaps between fights, and sometimes that inactivity hurts fighters. Often it does. So I think Daniel Dubois should be staying active if he can. And given that he's riding high, wouldn't that be great if he could end up being on the undercard of the Fury and also Usyk rematch in a big fight? That just makes it such a much more massive fight, with all the belts being on the line on that card, and potentially the winner facing Dubois if he won whatever fight he'd be in. Be that against a Zhang or a Boli or a Caballero or even a Parker. The other names on the list I see as a little bit less likely. Ajagba, he's just fought Hrgovic. Chisora, no thank you. Varlin probably doesn't deserve it after his loss to Joshua. Wardley is going to be facing Clark at some point. Anderson, no. Guido Vianello, no. And Herney, don't see that happening at this point. Some of these guys are a few fights away, or they're not quite in that Saudi pocket, in that bubble where they need to be. They haven't got the results to sort of go, push this onto me, I deserve it. Maybe you could argue, Zhang, after his loss to Parker, was lucky to get that fight with Wilder, but obviously, at the moment, it's kind of more UFC-like. A loss doesn't necessarily define the next 2 years of your career. You can be back in almost straight away. As we've seen, Parker has resurrected his career. So I like all of these names and options. It'll be interesting to see what the Saudis do, if in fact any of these are in play. If the rematch happens, obviously all this is moot, but will Joshua want to take it? And especially if it's going to be in 3 or 4 months. If there's a rematch, is it more likely 6 or 7 months? Yeah, we'll have to see. But Dubois, if he stays active, Caballero, Bacoli, Zhang, Parker, I'll take any of those names. Is there anyone else that's an outside shot, potentially? Remembering it has to be in this top 15, although in the next month, this list probably to be updated. Maybe another name or two could be in the potential mix. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.